Here we are on the episode where we're going to put this carburetor back together with the various bits and pieces, giving it all a bit of a rinse out with some carb cleaner. I'm also going to give it a bit of a blowout with the airline. This is our tiny little filter that was sat in the bottom of the carb. Yet to find out where that goes back. Now, it goes back in this piece here. So we'll give that a bit of a puff out, just to make sure that it's all clean. And just make sure there's no bits of debris or rubbish kicking around. I think we're good. So where do we start? I think I loosened this off last time, so we'll just nip that back up. That's our little glass float. Right, we need that to go back in there. Before we pop that bit onto this bit, we've got an important piece to do, which is to put this conversion power jet in there, which changes it to 25:1. So that should save you a bit of oil and a bit of smoke and a little bit of rainbow effect on the water. Okay. So we've got to see how we can get this, which is the long jet, down in there. So let's just try dropping it in first, see if that works. Didn't drop straight in, that would have been nice. Try the needle pliers. There we go, so he's in there, and then we see whether we can get this just to start doing it up. What I've done is instead of using my key, I've used the one that came from John at Save Old Seagulls. Put a slot in there as well, and I've just nipped it up. So you might be able to see the new jet in there, but we're good to get on to the next stage, I think. Right, so where were we? Put the new jet in. Got a picture here how this goes, I believe. Make sure I get my washers on there. Doesn't really tell me a lot, it's got to be said, picture wise. So I think that goes on that way. So we've got a fibre washer top and bottom. And then we put this on. Screw the cap on. Like so. Grab it with a rag. Get it a bit tightened up. It's still going up and down. Fuel pipe goes in the bottom here. And then last of all, it's really simple actually. Just screw on this, which is just the air intake. I believe this bit's called a storm guard. It makes sense that if you get a bit of water that comes in, it would need to go up before it went into the carburetor. So I think that screws on square, so it's facing straight downwards. And what I'll do next is just nip this bottom bolt up. I was trying to keep the float chamber at a right angle so it's in the right place. Not too tight, but enough to be petrol tight. So you can see carburetor body, float chamber, intake, and then this side goes on the side of the engine. So we'll have a look at that next. Here's my inlet part. I might just clean that off just to see if we can get some paint over that. There's that old saying, you should learn by your mistakes. Well, there's another one we're learning. The float chamber I put on the wrong side. So apparently, as it says in the instructions with the new jet that I received, the float chamber goes on the side of the carburetor body, furthest away from the fuel tank, and it also says here that it should be bolted up against the inlet. So let's just check again. So on the side of the carburetor farthest from the petrol tank goes on this side, nearest on the side nearest to the boat. So boat on this side, because there is the transom bracket, and must be bolted up, pressed against the inlet cowl, which is what this is, in order to provide the correct fuel levels, etc. This is vitally important. So thank God for the instructions. Sometimes you need to read them. So let's just nip that up again. Not too tight, because I don't want to damage the fibre washer. So there we have it in the correct place. Okay, that looks pretty secure. I haven't secured this on here yet, as you'll see, but I just cleaned it off. So it should fit on there quite nicely now. I'll just find myself a spanner and we'll tighten that up. So now we can nip this up. Get this tightened from underneath quite nicely. Make sure the carb is at right angles, so it's facing up and down in the right orientation. It doesn't want clamping too hard, just enough to stop it from turning like that. So that's the carburetor on. Brilliant. Now if money was no object, I probably would have bought a new throttle cable. Unfortunately it is, so what I've done is I've taken the old throttle cable, which doesn't look too bad. I've wiped it off again with a bit of solvent, cleaned up the cap a little bit. Still got a bit of crud on there, so I'll give it another going over. And next I'm just going to give it a little bit of a squirt with some WD-40. Seems to be moving okay. Let's just take this throttle slide off again. Oh, I think it is. Yeah, it's going up and down in a reasonable way. So I think we get a little bit more use out of that before we spend whatever it was, £15 or more on a new throttle cable. Never let it say that I'm a bit tight, but I am a little bit tight. Doesn't quite warrant it, just for show. Smells amazing. Squirt a bit of that down in there if we can. Right, so this bit goes on here, and so here's our spring, which looks like it's been a bit doctored, may not even be the right spring. I'll pop it on there, see what it does. And the smaller nipple goes through there, and then we're ready to go back into the carburetor, I think. So let's see what happens next. Okay, we've got a pin that sticks out down in the throttle slide there. I'm just going to put a little puff of lubricant in there, and then this slot there should line up with the slot that's in there. Just going to make sure that that doesn't rotate. That's going right down, which is where it should do. Okay, screw this on, make sure not to cross thread it. Okay, I'm not too sure about the route that this will take, other than the fact that I think it needs to go through that hole here, like so. and then up onto there. Seems to work quite freely. I can hear it going up and down in here. So we'll see what happens next. Next we have the stator plate, I think it is. That goes back on the top here. There's a pin there that locates in a hole there. So we're just going to do that now. This bit slides over the top. Wiggle it down till it's home. We'll just tighten the screw up a little bit so that we can feel it pressing on the shaft, and then it will drop in the right place. Just tighten it up so it no longer wiggles, and that should set your ignition timing to the right place. Okay, so there we have it. That's all tightened up under there, and this will no longer rotate. There's our points. But when the flywheel goes on, we'll open and close the gap. I'm just going to clean all this up. Put a bit of spray on that, and I don't like how dirty it all is. Okay, feels like we're really on the glory work now. Here's the new flywheel. We'll go on. So there it is, along with its new cap, cleaned up cap. So yeah, we really are taking shape now. Dome that to go back on the top there. I briefly took out the throttle slide just so that I could get to things a bit easier. That will pop down in there. Try not to cross thread that. So it goes down. There's our choke. So really, we're nearly there now. Got to put the new spark plug in and attach the HT lead. So it really is down to just attaching this tank, this new shiny tank that I got on my other motor. So we'll take that off and clean that up next, and give it a try, I suppose. What I might do is I might leave the prop off whilst I'm giving it a try. Got to put some gearbox oil in, don't let me forget that. Oh yes. And when I put the tank on, there's the fuel pipe into the carburetor. So we are very nearly there. Tune in next time for fuel tank going on, HT lead being connected, possibly the oil going in, and we may be giving it a start.